Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at some leaks from December, because even though one set of leakers said that they won't leak anything, guess what? There's multiple sets of leakers that will leak stuff anyway. So even though one set said that they would do it as a gift to Gaijin this Christmas to not leak stuff, well guess what? Another set has just said no. So what we're going to do is go through the leaks in this video for the next major update. It's kind of wild how we finish one and then the next one starts straight away. Shows how cramped this season is in terms of everything set up. Now remember, these are just leaks. They're not affiliated with Gaijin. They are not confirmed or anything like that. It is just some person throwing stuff into the ether. But this person has got quite a lot of stuff right in the past, so it'd be very surprising if this doesn't come true. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's get started. So all these leaks are based around China, and it does affect a lot of other nations though, because of the vehicles that are being talked about. The first one being a Russian vehicle in the Chinese tech tree. The Chinese tech tree is becoming the place where pretty much every nation seems to be ending up. Obviously previously, this was kind of the case anyway, with already American, German, and also Russian vehicles all being in the tech tree. But now, it looks like, in the next major update, or maybe a later version, China is going to get its own Su-30, and this will be coming after the JH-7A. There's usually a reason why Gaijin adds a bunch of variants of the same vehicle. It's either because of the fact that they wanted a different BRs to have different ordnance, or because they are setting up to put something after it. And if you have a look at the additions of the JH-7s in the last update, looks like that's probably twofold. They're doing both things, making it a little bit harder to grind that area of the tech tree, and also setting up for future stuff coming soon. The idea is the Su-30 will be turning up. Now, China actually uses two versions of the Su-30. They use the good old MKK, and they also use the Su-30 MK2. Now, if you have a look at what's been added already in this update, we obviously had another Su-30 that turned up for Russia. This one is the Su-30 MK2 AMV. And the one that's going to come in for China is probably pretty similar. It'll probably be slightly different. You know how all of these different variants go. At the end of the day, the Su-30, or what I like to class as the Su-27 series, since that was kind of the baseline of all of these types of things, they're going to be shared all over the place, especially with the Su-30 export series, the MKKs. These were not just used by Venezuela like we have in the game, they're also used by Indonesia, so they could end up in the Japanese tech tree again, unless there is a big outcry from the Chinese community again. They also are in the Vietnamese area, and as you know, Vietnam is also in multiple tech trees when you have a look at War Thunder. But China is the obvious addition, so if we don't see an Su-30 MKK or an MK2 by Christmas, it'll be super surprising, especially since it's in this leak. Another message also seems to confirm that every nation will get ESA radars by the end of 2025, pretty much saying that it will happen. Obviously, with ESA, this is, or AESA, depending on who you're chatting to, this is one of the new radar modes that has been slowly integrated into War Thunder in many top-tier vehicles, but not every nation has access to it. See it as very similar to kind of the new SAM systems that Gaijin added for every nation. You have some which are much more longer range in terms of the German IRIS, and then you have stuff like the CSSA-5 for China, which is technically a new SAM, but is nowhere near the capability. The ESA radar gives a lot of high-tier vehicles extra opportunities to be incredibly good compared to the predecessors, and there is a bit of a problem in War Thunder right now. Not every nation has access to an ESA radar. So the idea would be, by the end of 2025, every nation would have access to at least one plane which would have the capabilities of that radar. Also, the J-10C was mentioned, but wasn't confirmed, but that may be something that would get it for China. Of course, there are many nations in the game that do not have access to the ESA radars, and hopefully they will turn up in the future. Who knows? But my guess is when it comes to War Thunder, it's going to march forward, right? It constantly goes forward and constantly innovates, and the evolution of the game constantly keeps grinding. So it'd be very surprising if this doesn't happen. And over the last few years, the December update has been pretty heavy on the air side of things, so it wouldn't be surprising if that continues. And the last part is probably the most important. The M1A2. It has been confirmed in this leak that it will still come, which isn't too surprising because Gaijin talks about it in the community update, but then again, they have said stuff in official areas and changed tact when it comes to what they were doing with it. But it looks like the M1A2T, which is the Taiwanese version of the Abrams, is still going to be coming. They talked about it in the last community update, and the idea was maybe they would add it in the last update, but instead what we have is a gap between it coming in. Now, the M1A2T has caused a lot of controversy over the last month or week or 2 months or so, and it's not surprising to me at all that it has, because many people are pointing at double standards. The fact that supposedly the VT4 was going to come to the Japanese tech tree, but then it was chosen not to because of community backlash. But when it comes to the M1A2T, America's grandstanding top-tier MBT, the idea is just to stick it in a foreign nation's tech tree. And, of course, when you have a look at nationalism, when you have a look at veracity, when you have a look at aggression, especially in the world, different countries vying for the #1 spot, there is going to be that bled over a little bit into War Thunder. So even though there has been a little bit of a quiet backlash when it comes to the M1A2T, it seems like it's still coming. And my guess is they'll probably bring it in alongside another vehicle for America. So therefore it doesn't cause as many issues. Because if they decide to bring in the M1A2T without a new vehicle for America, the Chinese might get the best version of the Abrams, which would be a little bit odd to actually think about. I think personally it would just be nice to get versions of the Abrams which have access to the DU armor or have access to spore liners. Even if it is just some prototype versions, it would be kind of cool. But right now, the Abrams is shown in many different versions in the American tech tree, and my guess is eventually they'll spread it across the place. This also comes into what we've talked about before, with they need to start thinking about how to actually try and incentivize people of playing the same vehicles over and over again. With the Chinese tech tree, one of the areas of it which was unique and was interesting compared to the rest of it is the top tier area, where they mainly just had Chinese vehicles. Now they've added the Oplot, which is the second Oplot that has turned up, and now they're going to add the Abrams. So that area of the tech tree becomes a little bit less unique, and also not as interesting as it was before. Even if the lineup itself is better, it also just means that it isn't going to be as well received because of the fact that it is very similar. So maybe they can add in a system to make it a little bit easier to grind out vehicles that you've already played. Maybe they could think about changing up research, or maybe they could stop with this weird double standard of listening to certain parts of the community because of their veracity and aggression, and instead apply the same rules across the board. But we know that will never happen, because reaction is based on aggression and nothing else. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shea, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.